DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. David Locke's weekly interview brought to you by the Murdoch Auto Team. David, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Who cares about me? What about you? You've been calling all these losses, these blowouts, finding something to talk about with the team down by 20 in the first quarter again, and now you have a win, a victory. The streak has been snapped. I assume you feel great about that.
That was nice. I mean, I think I've actually find this, I mean, this is not what we all signed up for, but this whole stretch where these guys are literally playing for their lives, there's something to it, right? I remember like many, many years ago when we signed Boyan and had gotten, I think we got Mike Conley and Boyan Bogdanovic and somebody else that offseason in exchange for Ricky Rubio, Jay Crowder, and I don't remember. And so we got way better. And I remember I was at coffee with Quinn. And he's like, what do you think? I'm like, well, you're going to have to give him to play hard. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, the guys you had before, if they didn't play hard, they went home. These guys are so talented that they don't have to play hard every night. Now you have to get them to play hard. And there is something, like Kenny Lofton Jr. has been dominated the G League, dominated Summer League. He's just trying to get a chance. And, he can't prove much more than he's already proven on every other level. So now he's got to try to prove it here, and he gets his opportunity. And, he's flying around, and Baisley's flying around, and Šamanić is flying around. Like, there's something to be said for, just how hard those guys played last night. And they're obviously, someone's watching, and I think Baisley's probably making himself a career right now, and or at least getting himself they want to make sure that they're on charter flights and buses and Four Seasons and Ritz-Carltons next year, not La Quintas and commercial flights.
Yeah, I get it, and that's the way it should be. Did you have any thought of Taylor Hendricks just standing over there on the sidelines as they're making this run, and is it potentially better long-term if he was out there even if they lose the game? What's your feeling on all that?
Will has probably, if we went back and looked at 13 of the losses, or if we can go back and look at 20, was it 22 or 25 or something like that? I think that there's a lot of substitution in almost every single one of those games. He substituted Taylor Hendricks in with 6 minutes left to give Taylor the experience. And there was a decision that was made last night that we're going to bypass experience and get these home fans a win and decide, and we'll go get a win tonight. I think there's been Simone Fontecchio, Kelly Olynyk, and Ochai Agbaji are not so good that they turn a 500 team into a worst team in the NBA. Yeah. So there was a bigger picture concept that at that point we changed the starting lineup, we changed who got minutes. I think we started giving minutes because of their draft position and things like that, and that zapped the soul a little bit. And then because you wanted Keontae and Taylor to have that experience and a lesser extent, but still have that experience to Bryce. And last night, the guys who were playing well got to play. And I think everyone decided that they really needed to win last night.
The Jazz are terrible in a lot of categories that you don't want to be terrible in. Giving up points on fast point breaks, giving up points off turnovers, defensive rating, the highest shooting percentage on threes. And so, to me, what you say about guys who are desperate to be in the league, effort fixes a lot of stuff. I mean, we can look at talent and scheme, and that stuff matters. But so does effort. They won a game because they had a bunch of guys playing hard. And I see other guys in transition, higher draft picks, who I think are running at three-quarter speed to get back on defense on a regular basis. I'm fine if they sit him because, honestly, if that's how they're going to play basketball, they're never going to be successful long-term in the NBA. They're not going to reach any of the goals that fans and management are talking about and that hopefully players are talking about too. So, to me, the lesson some of the rookies need to take away is look how much you get just out of effort. And you think you're giving effort, but look at this. Now look at this. There's a clear difference.
So, 2 comments. One is, I think last time we were in Los Angeles, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I agree with you 100%. And I don't expect everyone to have listened to every radio interview I've ever done on 1280 The Zone, but if you go back, I think I might have talked to you guys about this last week, is I got into a nasty rabbit hole with Alex and Jeremiah on Taylor Hendricks, and I think that I did the interview with you guys, and I was kind of like trying to stay out of it. Like, what I was going to say is you got to play hard. Like, well, they all got to play harder. Like, yeah, Keontae's got to be smarter with the ball and play harder. And Taylor's got to impact the game more. He's 6'9", 215 pounds. He's got unbelievable athleticism. Impact the game. And like, but I also like, this is where I'm going to get into the rabbit hole. So I can make that comment really forcefully and sound like a great commentator, but okay, now let's be honest. Now it's like, instead of just like bagging on it, let's actually talk about it. So they've been the best player on the floor in every game they've ever played until they got here. So they've never had to play harder. It's not something they've ever had to do in their entire life, if you really get down to it. So they got to learn how to play harder and what that is. And how do I play harder for 6-minute stints? And how do I play harder for 12? And then eventually, frankly, you actually have to learn how to pace yourself, because you can't play your hardest for 36 straight minutes if you're going to be that player. But they're not that player yet, but they don't know that yet. And so, maybe they saw it a little bit last night from other guys, or, I mean, Keontae needs the season to end. Like, he needs the season to end and to reset. Like, laying on the floor last night complaining about a call while the game goes the other direction. Like, okay, you're clearly mentally done. And, you watch his body reaction every time he makes a turnover. You can just see that there's nothing free about this game to him right now.
You have spoken at this time of year that you go into a little bit of mental funk when the season is over. What do you anticipate this year? That
Wednesday I'll want to call a game. That's what I love to do, right? Like, so, I mean, this has been a little funky and been a little weird. I don't think I did some not very good WNBA teams, so I think I probably have had a stretch where I've lost 23 of 26, or whatever it was. But yeah, no, I mean, but I'm also going to go to the Big Ten championships and watch my daughter play golf. So
I knew you were really doing that. I looked at I actually looked at the schedule to see where
Not
you'd be.
kid.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I'm leaving town pretty quickly. I knew you were
going to do that. Why did they have a month off? I don't get that. I saw that they didn't have competition for a month.
Yeah, they play today or play tomorrow at Columbus, and then it was just good actually. She went and saw some guru in Los Angeles. Trust me, he must have been a guru because I saw the price tag. If all he did was fix your swing, that wasn't worth it. I don't know. He's some internet sensation. Worked with Matthew Wolf, so we've now reached the level where we have a college scholarship, so we spend our money on flying across country for golf lessons. It's great.
Well, if you didn't have kids, what would you spend your money on, right?
No, it's great. No, I mean, I think you guys would say this is we're not just three buddies talking, but I mean, I think I understand the Big Ten is not that big a deal in golf. I'm not lost on it, but I think all three of us grew up with like Pac-10 versus Big Ten is like this big deal. Like for me to go watch my daughter play in the Big Ten championships, just the label itself feels really flipping cool. Like I think I'm going to be a little overwhelmed by it. I do understand in the golf realm, it's certainly not the same thing as, Arizona State and Stanford and Clemson and Florida State and
still
Florida,
cool. It's still cool, right, though.
Yeah.
Well, it means the world to them. That's good enough.
Yeah, that's a great point, PK. So, yeah, I'm fired up. So, yeah, I'll be, But, no, I mean, hey, I love to call games. Like, there's nothing I enjoy more than I've talked, just on a personal note, there's just nothing cooler than walking into the arena. Like, that fires me. It's a little different at home because we walk in through a different way. But, like, tonight we take a bus in underneath the Crypto.com arena, and you walk in through and you walk into the stadium, into the floor, and you walk. I love it. Like, that's, like, truly, like, calling the game is my most favorite thing in the world. But there's nothing that's cooler than that sensation. Like, you can't lose that. And I've been able to do it for 15 years, and I think, you guys probably feel the same way. We've all been doing this now long enough where, it was fun talking to Jake and Ben yesterday about the hockey thing, where, like, I went back to Washington Square in 1994, I think it was, when they announced the Olympics. I was live on Sports Radio 570 when they announced the Olympics were coming to Salt Lake. Like, the other cool thing about it is, like, the three of us have gotten to document and relay kind of the history of sports in Utah from when they became, somewhat relevant, right? Like, and it's just a great honor to be able to do that. So everyone's asking me, like, oh, has this been terrible? I mean, it's not great that you're just not a very good basketball team. And hey, we've been outscored by 110 points in the last 14 first quarters. Like, yeah, that makes it a little tough. Like, you're down by 8 or 9 by the end of one every night. But it's still just a total pleasure to call games and try to hit it and try to nail the right call at the right time and use the right words and all. And it's just awesome. Like, it's my crack cocaine. So
the Jazz have a couple options going forward here. One is, stick with young guys, draft, keep building, try to hit on some draft picks and watch the young guys take off. And the other thing is to add some veterans in the mix and try to speed it up. And I remember talking to you at the start of the season, you thought, okay, Houston's adding veterans into the mix and trying to speed it up, but adding the right veterans and how far can they really get before they bump into a ceiling? And the Jazz management's been real clear. They want their ceiling to be legit championship contender for multiple years. They've laid that out multiple times. Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks, that's adding $60 to $65 million, not just this year, but next year and the year after. That's a big chunk of the payroll right there. And they missed the play-in, which I think you were not very surprised by, judging by what you thought about their moves back in the fall. Do you look at it any differently now? Is this a real warning to Jazz fans who are thinking, hey, speed it up? Well, look what happened in Houston. Kind of analyze the Rocket season and how can they improve from here? Because if they do improve from here, no 1 year in a rebuild is that important as long as you get to the right place.
So I think a bunch of things here. This is a great question. So first of all, Fred VanVleet's contract is 3 years, $120 million, but the last year's not guaranteed. So it's really a 2-year, $80 million deal. So that one's super interesting to me. Do you sign, if you're the Utah Jazz, a 2-year, $80 million contract to DeMar DeRozan just so that you have some level of, like, I don't know, relevancy, and you actually can compete on a nightly basis? It's great. I think it's a great debate for you guys. Number two is I do think the Rockets had won 60 games in 3 years. 60 games in 3 seasons.
Yikes.
Their kids had not played a relevant, important basketball game. And so I think that's problematic. Like, I think the fact that Jalen Green got better this year because he actually was playing games that matter with ramifications, and the Jabari Smith got better because he's playing games with ramifications matters. On the other end, they have Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, and Jalen Green, who are all top 5 picks that they can build around for the future. And so now they've made the pivot to signing veterans. And I think there's something to that model that for 3 or 4 years you acquire young talent and you pivot. The last thing, though, I'll be really frank about when I look at the Utah Jazz, is like LeBron and AD are making probably one more run. Steph and those guys are making one more run. Minnesota's going to be great next year. OKC is going to be great next year. New Orleans is going to be great next. Like, obviously, pending mass chaos, which we really would like to see, probably, frankly. We would like every upset and mass chaos to take place here in the playoffs, so it disrupts things. But, like, Sacramento's not making the playoffs this year. And I don't think they're making the playoffs next year. And I can't figure out how we're possibly going to be better than Sacramento. So there is part of me that feels like I could go in front of Ryan Smith, Danny Ainge, Justin Zanuck, and Will Hardy and be like, hey, actually the answer is sign Lowry to an extension and don't do anything else. And really go to 20 wins and then draft and then start maybe at that point. But the West is just murderer's row right now, and I don't actually see a great path by which we're like certainly making the playoffs or even the play-in next year. Now, maybe something materializes, but if you're not going to do one of those two things, and you don't have 3 years of 60 wins like the Rockets, then I'm not sure why you do that 2-year, $80 million deal just to be respectable. And so I don't know. I can make a really, really strong argument. In fact, I think I'm kind of leaning that way right now. That if I were in the Jazz front office, pending mass chaos, maybe the answer is that you're starting Keontae George, Bryce Sensabaugh, Collins, Lowry Markkanen, Taylor Hendricks, John Collins, Walker Kessler, with John Collins, Walker Kessler coming off the bench, and Colin Sexton coming off the bench, and I don't know what happens to Jordan Clarkson in that scenario. But and that your 8th guy is one of your rookies, and your 9th guy is one of your draft picks. And we're not very good. But I'm not entirely sure that's the wrong move.
How hard is it to be patient, though, for those guys?
Well, I think there's a direct correlation between how much pain you're willing to take, and the system is built in a manner where I do think there's a direct correlation between the amount of pain you're willing to take increases the amount of chance you have for future success. Right?
Yeah, I hate pain.
Right, I do. But, if you decide you just want to be the 10th best team, that's not that painful. It's mediocre, but it's not very painful. You're competing every night. Houston didn't have a very painful season. Yeah. Frankly, Golden State didn't have a very painful. Golden State's probably pretty engaged right now. They're going to close the year winning 9 of 10. And think they might make a run, and and Golden State's maybe a little different because that's a bad example. But if you're building, that's zero pain. We can do that. But I don't think that's leading you to any chance to go on. To your point of the Rockets route to becoming a great team is Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and Amen Thompson developing. That's it. Because Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet aren't. They can move your meter from 20 to 40. They just did that. That's cool. And good coaching moved their meter from 20 to 40. But Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks aren't moving your meter from 40 to 45. Those are hard wins.
Yeah.
But maybe they help
45 to 50. That's where the Tim Conley trade for Rudy Gobert, I still think is a great trade by Minnesota. I think it's an absolutely awesome trade by Minnesota.
But maybe getting from...
got him from... you can't get people to get you from 45 to 55. Rudy can get you there.
Maybe Houston getting from 20 to 40 helps their young guys develop so the young guys don't get beaten down, have the bad body language, not hustle back on defense, because those guys need some wins mixed in. They need some positive feedback while they're struggling and learning, which is part of inevitably, most guys have to do that unless you're Tim Duncan. Well, good for you. But most guys have to do that. And to not get any positive feedback. I get why shoulders are slumped and the body language isn't good and the hustle isn't there. I don't think you can be okay with it because you'll never win if you play like that. But I do get why guys get beaten down. It's kind of human nature. And so for Houston not to get beaten down because, VanVleet and Brooks are helping them get from 20 wins to 40 wins, getting some positive feedback. They walk off the court feeling good. That helps them put in the work to develop. And we'll see if it pays off down the line, but I get the logic to that.
And I think, and it gave someone for the rest of those guys to look at, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to act? So I think that's super important. You go back to the 76ers in the beginning of the process, and they just had no adults in the room. But, on the other end, I do think they're a little bit of an outlier and they've become everyone's favorite model, and I don't think it's a very logical conversation, but so Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe he's just a unique bird, does go through 2 years of terrible losing. They were 20 and 60 for back-to-back years, and comes out of it as one of the 5 best players in the NBA, right?
You need the unique birds to win. That's what separates you from the teams. Great teams separate from very good because they've got that. All right, David.
So, I think it's a great – I want to make sure everyone – I think you and I are both right, and this is the crux of the difficulty of the process. And that is, I'm not sure the false run up the mountain is actually worth it just to look good. And you're absolutely right. Just getting your head beat in every night with no semblance of
hope
is not a great model either.
Yeah.
So it's really hard.
Well, maybe that's why they're paying Markin and Collins to be those guys. They don't have to bring them in. They got those guys on the roster to be those guys.
Yeah.
Be the
That's a great
professionals,
point.
be the grown-ups in the room, and be so good that you drag the team to 40 or 45 wins, and that's why you're getting paid the big money, because those guys are getting, assuming Markin gets this extension, that's big money for a lot of years.
Yeah, and you know what? John Collins and Dylan Brooks probably have a lot of similarities in kind of their level of play on teams, and Fred VanVleet and Lauri Markkanen probably have a lot of similarities. So to some extent, that's a great analogy. Good job, David. You're really good at this. When did you start doing this?
Every once in a while. Squirrel, acorn.
When did you? You might wow. You're not a rookie in this opening year.
Nope, you were there in the bagel shop when that offer got made, so you know.
Hey, I've done some great things, and I've been obtuse to a few things, PK. So I'll take credit where I have it, and I'll ignore the failures.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, David, we appreciate it. Go enjoy the Big Ten Golf Championships. Have fun.
All right. Talk to you soon.
David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, join us right here on The Zone. When we come back, everything you missed in this show, the basketball, the pro basketball, the college hoops, the Mark Pope news, the Mark Madsen news, the hockey, on down the line. Stay with us.